Welcome to your deep dive. Looks like you're ready to tackle consumerism.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it?
It is. And you sent over this video from Dimitri Uralov.
Uralov, yeah. He's got some interesting ideas about how to resist all that pressure to spend, spend, spend.
Well, let's dive in then. What stood out to you?
The thing is, he doesn't just tell you what to do, you know? It's not just a list of rules. He
Yeah.
really gets into the psychology of it. Why we buy things we don't need, how to break those habits. It's pretty fascinating.
I like that. So where does he start?
Well, his first point is all about values, like really understanding what's important to you.
Okay, how do you do that?
He suggests actually sitting down, with a pen and paper, making a list.
A list of your values.
Exactly. He even says you could do it with a friend or family member, brainstorm together.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
To get some outside perspective.
Yeah, and it forces you to really think about it, not just what you say you value, but what your actions actually show.
So, if I'm hearing this right, the idea is that by knowing your values, you're less likely to fall for those, what did he call them?
Consumption impulses?
Yes, those tempting deals and shiny new products.
It's like you're building up a defense against them. You know what matters to you, so you're not as easily swayed by advertising or trends.
So say, for example, experiences are really important to me,
Right.
like travel or learning a new skill.
Then that urge to buy the latest gadget, it just doesn't have the same pull because it doesn't align with what truly fulfills you.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so what's his next tip?
Tip number 2 is all about what he calls logistical protection.
Logistical protection. Okay, I'm intrigued.
It's kind of like outsmarting yourself,
Awesome.
Uralov says that willpower alone, it's usually not enough. You need to put systems in place.
Systems to what, make it harder to overspend?
Exactly. He suggests leaving your credit card at home when you go out or setting strict limits on your online accounts.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Even having separate bank accounts so you have to actually transfer money if you want to buy something impulsively. He's all about creating those little roadblocks.
So you're making the desired choice, the one that aligns with your values, the easy choice.
Right. It's kind of like that idea of choice architecture, right? You nudge yourself in the right direction. Like how grocery stores put candy at the checkout.
Oh, I hate that.
Yeah. So Uralov's logistical protection is like rearranging those snacks so the healthy choices are the most accessible.
I love that analogy. Okay, I gotta know. What's his last tip?
This one's a little sneaky. He says pay attention to people who are really caught in that consumerism trap.
Really? What do you mean?
Observe their struggles, their frustrations. Notice how their spending doesn't actually bring them lasting happiness.
Interesting. So it's like a cautionary tale.
It is. It's about shifting your perspective, right? Seeing the downsides of consumerism so you're even more motivated to live differently. He even suggests keeping track of it, like writing down the downsides you're seeing.
And then comparing those to how you feel as you're, implementing his other tips.
Right. You celebrate your wins. Like when you resist a purchase or see your savings grow because you made a conscious choice, it's positive reinforcement.
So you're focusing on the good stuff, not on what you're missing out on.
Exactly. And that can be super motivating. It's like you're rewiring your reward system.
This is really interesting stuff. Okay, so we've got our values, our roadblocks, and our, what should we call them? Anti-role models.
Something like that, yeah. But there's one thing from Uralov's video that really sticks with me. This idea that real happiness, you can't buy it.
Right, I was just going to say that. It's like he's challenging this whole idea that buying stuff will make us happy.
It's such a common narrative these days. You need to have the latest phone, the newest car, the bigger house.
And Uralov calls it artificial happiness, right?
Exactly. And there's a good reason for that. There's actually research that shows the happiness we get from buying something, it's temporary.
The novelty wears off.
Exactly. Psychologists call it the hedonic treadmill. You get a little boost, but then you adapt and you want more. You're always chasing that next purchase.
So the question is, if we can't buy happiness, where do we find it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's something we'll explore more in the next part of our deep dive. But Uralov definitely hints at the importance of connecting with something deeper, living a life that's more, authentic.
Yeah, aligned with your true self. I like that. All right, we'll pick this up in the next part of our deep dive. See you then.
Yeah. So we're talking about this artificial happiness versus, genuine fulfillment.
Right.
And one thing Uralov said really stuck with me. He thinks consumerism often comes from a place of lack or feeling inadequate.
Yeah, he makes a good point about how we're told we need more
Yeah.
to be happy, successful, worthy.
Exactly. And so you're always wanting, buying, then wanting even more.
It's like a never-ending cycle.
It is. And it's never enough.
So how do we break that?
Well, Uralov talks about understanding the why. Like, why are we spending? What are those underlying beliefs or emotions driving us?
Oh, that's interesting. So we should be asking ourselves, what am I really hoping to get out of this purchase?
Yeah, and often those urges to buy, they're tied to deeper needs, like maybe you're craving connection or validation, or even trying to cope with stress or sadness.
So we're using shopping as a temporary fix.
Exactly. And if we're not aware of those deeper drivers, it's easy to fall into that trap. Uralov even suggests therapy could help.
Really?
Yeah, to like explore those issues. He doesn't see this as just about finances. It's psychological, emotional.
That makes sense. If you think your worth is tied to what you own, you're always going to be chasing that next purchase.
And it's a recipe for problems, right? Debt, clutter, that feeling of emptiness, even when you're surrounded by stuff.
Uralov also talked about consumerism as a form of escapism.
Right.
Like, we buy things to avoid dealing with our problems.
Right. If we're constantly shopping to numb ourselves or avoid tough emotions, we're never dealing with the real issues.
It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Exactly. But I do like that Uralov doesn't just focus on the negative. He offers solutions.
So, back to the big question. If happiness isn't in a shopping cart, where is it?
That's what we all want to know, right? Uralov doesn't give a simple answer, but he points to a few things.
Like connecting with our values.
Right. Knowing what's important gives us direction, purpose. It's like a compass guiding our choices.
And then those choices feel more meaningful.
And that's where the fulfillment comes in.
Okay, so we need to figure out what truly brings me joy.
Exactly. What gives my life meaning? What impact do I want to make?
Those are some big questions.
They are. But once you have some answers, you can start making choices that reflect those values in your spending, your relationships, your career, everything.
And your love really stresses this isn't about deprivation. It's not about living like a monk.
No, it's about being intentional, making conscious choices that align with what matters to you.
And recognizing your worth isn't about what you own.
Right. It's about your qualities, your talents, your contributions, the impact you make on the world.
It's like shifting from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance.
Exactly. And then you're free from that pressure to buy, to accumulate, to keep up with everyone else. Your energy goes to what truly matters.
I love that. It's about reclaiming your power. And he talks about that sense of freedom, right? Like once you break free from consumerism, you can really pursue your passions.
Yeah, and connect with others on a deeper level. Live a more authentic life. He even asks, what if we invested in experiences, relationships, creativity instead of material possessions?
That's a powerful thought. Shifting from a culture of consumption to one of creation and connection.
Exactly. And, Uralov also touches on the environmental impact of all this.
Oh, right. Our constant need for stuff is depleting the planet's resources.
And contributing to climate change. So by resisting consumerism, we're not just helping ourselves, we're helping the planet.
It's like we're voting with our dollars.
Exactly. Supporting a system that values people and the planet, not just profit.
And that's empowering, right, to know we can make a difference.
It is, but he's also realistic. Changing these habits, it's not easy. It takes time and effort.
There will be setbacks, temptations.
Right. But the key is to keep reminding yourself why you're doing this.
And even small changes can add up, right? Like repairing something instead of buying new.
Or cooking at home instead of eating out.
Choosing experiences over gadgets.
It's about finding joy in the simple things.
And being mindful of the media we consume.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. Uralov talks about how advertising, social media, they're constantly telling us we need more.
Playing on our insecurities or fears.
Exactly. So we need to be aware of that. Maybe unfollow certain accounts, take breaks.
It's about taking back control.
Yes. We get to decide what messages we let in. We can shape our own thoughts and behaviors.
So it's about being more conscious, intentional, proactive.
And remembering, we have the power to choose, to create a life that's aligned with our values, a life that's both fulfilling and contributes to a better world.
This has been so insightful. Uralov's ideas and the way you've connected them to like psychology and even the environment, it's really given me a lot to think about.
Me too. I hope it's inspired our listeners to, think about their own relationship with consumerism.
Absolutely. But now I'm curious, how does all this play out in the real world? Are there people actually living like this?
Oh, definitely. And that's what we'll dive into next.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the problems with consumerism and all these great ideas from Dimitri Uralov. But now I'm really wondering, are there people actually living this way?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's pretty amazing to see, people putting these ideas into action.
Like, what does that actually look like?
Well, we talked about aligning your spending with your values, right? And there's this whole movement of people doing that.
Like the minimalists.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Simplifying their lives, prioritizing experiences over stuff.
I've seen those documentaries about people downsizing, decluttering, and then like traveling the world.
Right. And what's interesting is a lot of them say they're actually happier. Like they have more time, more freedom. They traded stuff for experiences.
And those experiences, they bring more lasting fulfillment.
Exactly. It's not about having nothing,
Mm.
It's just about shifting your priorities, being intentional with your time, your energy, your money.
So do you have any like specific examples, people who are really living this way?
Yeah, tons. I was just reading about this couple who sold their house, got rid of most of their stuff, and now they travel full time.
Wow.
Yeah, they work remotely, blog about their adventures, and they say they've never felt so alive.
That's amazing. It shows you don't have to be stuck in that, work, consume, repeat cycle.
Exactly. And it's not just about traveling the world. There are people living in tiny
Oh,
houses.
yeah, I love those tiny
They're
houses.
so cool, right?
Yeah, so efficient. And you have to be really intentional about what you own.
Exactly. And think about all the money and energy you free up when you don't have all that stuff. You can put it towards things you really care about.
That's true. What else? What else have you seen?
Well, there's also this whole DIY movement happening. People are growing their own food, making their own clothes,
I love that.
right? Repairing things instead of buying new ones. It's all about being more self-sufficient.
And resourceful.
Yeah. And they often end up connecting with their community too, sharing skills and knowledge.
It creates a different kind of culture, doesn't it?
It does. One focused on sharing and creating, not just consuming.
So inspiring. But, for people who aren't ready to sell everything and live in a tiny house, what can they do?
Oh, there are so many things. Even small changes can make a big difference.
Like what?
Well, you could start by just buying less, being more mindful about what you buy.
And maybe supporting local businesses or ethical brands.
Exactly. You're voting with your wallet every time you buy something.
So there are lots of different ways to do this. It's not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Not at all. It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values.
And remembering that you're not alone.
Right. There are so many people choosing to live this way.
It's like a movement.
It is. Challenging the status quo, creating a more sustainable and fulfilling future.
This has been such an incredible deep dive. I feel like Uralov's video and all these examples you've shared, they really give us hope.
They do. We're not stuck in this consumerism cycle.
We have choices. We can find real happiness.
In experiences, relationships, purpose, things that money can't buy.
Exactly. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? It's a journey.
It is. There will be challenges. But keep coming back to your values, keep learning, keep connecting with others. You got this.
Well, that's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll see you next time.